Hello AP U.S. History students from National University Academy and National University Virtual High School. Thank you for taking the time to review for your course discussions and the quizzes. This will assist you to do better not only in your writing and responses but also prepare you for your assessments. So we're continuing with a review of the Unit 6 information from chapters 12 and 13. We've discussed Protestantism, Second Great Awakening, Cult of True Womanhood. You can review those in the earlier video, just before this in Lecture 1 for Unit 6, Declaration of Sentiments, William Lloyd Garrison and the Anti-Slavery Association. And now we're on to the 19th century. Has been called the Century of the Child because the family became more centered around became more child-centered. You can read this on page 339. Now here, what's interesting is a lot of times we think of colonial times as being more simple, more family-centered. Actually, because the colonial period was still kind of a way of putting a time of putting roots down and establishing a more cohesive society. It was still more common for parents to send away their children for apprenticeships or send them away for educational purposes at a very young age. So now family life, the importance of it that we see nowadays or don't see nowadays, depending on who you are, where you live, and what your priorities are. But at this time, it was called the child-centered period, 19th century, because people really took the time to spend more time as a family on looking at issues like education and moral and religious focus on the home. That was happening, we recall, in the Puritan homes in New England, but even in those instances we saw families, both Puritan and those in the South, would send away their children at a young age to be brought up or schooled or apprenticed in some trade or educational goal away from the home. So the rise of the cult of womanhood was caused by a division in the working lives of men. I already spoke on these idea of separate spheres. More men were working outside the home. This is kind of a redundant question. It's on page 337. Writers who identified with the mood known as Young America urged rapid expansion of the economy in pursuit of technological advances, an aggressive foreign policy of territorial expansion, an extension of democracy and representative government. What they did not focus on was an American literature based on European themes and models. They wanted to create a new literature, a new American literature that was uniquely a unique tradition to the American story. So we'll see that in American writers at this time. So check over that information on page 361. Of course, we're talking about Emerson, Thoreau, Edgar Allan Poe, and others. So review that section. Question, let's see, in the 1820s and 30s, at this time, we're looking at the era of Manifest Destiny is rapidly approaching, and California is still, by and large, contains huge agricultural estates of large herds of cattle. You can review this on page 364. Remember that the northward part of California was an extension of Mexico still at this time. There were approximately 30,000 Indians who were forced to work in the encomienda system at this time in Spanish missions. There are about 21 missions up and down the coast of California, from San Diego to Sonoma, and Indians were the labor that built and kept these going, not only on the missions but also in the ranches, or the encomiendas, or the ranch farms. The Indians, after the secularization was meant to solve all these problems. It actually didn't help at all. So just taking the church out of it and quote, releasing these Indians to their own accord left them landless because the Mexican citizens still owned the land. So now the Indians were kicked off land that was once theirs. So it left 30,000 Indians without land and forced to fend for themselves on land that, and have to walk away from land that they once tilled, worked on, and lived on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Again, let's see that, review that on page 364. The basic argument offered in support of Manifest Destiny at this time was population growth necessitated territorial acquisitions. The United States was meant to occupy the entire North American continent, that God favored American expansionism, and that American expansionism would mean an extension of democracy to people that could use it. Americans felt they were divinely ordained to spread their beneficent instructions of democratic government over new lands that were acquired to accommodate an ever-growing population. Most European immigrants to America from 1840 to 1860 came from Ireland and Germany. You'll remember, you read up on this on page 381. The potato famine drove nearly 2 million immigrants from Ireland to America between 1845 and 1855, and political disturbances in Germany, in the German states, caused many Germans to immigrate at the same period. Germans came looking for land as well as actually they wanted to have a place where they could have land by themselves. They wanted to be left alone primarily. The big push factor in Ireland, of course, was that potato famine. The United States war with Mexico lasted longer than expected because Mexico refused to make peace. Despite a succession of military defeats, you can review these on page 373. You remember Kearny is going to capture Santa Fe. You have Taylor, who takes Matamoros and Monterrey in succession. He lets the Mexican garrison free, thinking that, okay, they've got to give up now. I've defeated them soundly 2 times here in a row. And this angered Polk. Polk was saying, hey, just finish them off, storm all the way through. Well, he ends up getting all the way to Winfield Scott ends up getting to Mexico City by coming in through Veracruz with an amphibious unit. And you can look at this on page 373 now. And then in September 1847, he gets all the way to Mexico City. The Mexico citizens didn't want to hear anything about surrender, so the politicians and the generals who were trying to negotiate with the United States were stuck. They eventually did agree to signing the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Even General Scott's army's occupation of Mexico City did not bring a quick capitulation of the proud Mexicans. They did not want to give it up. I have a couple more and then I'll have to pause it. We'll do 3 videos for Unit 6. John Tyler could be characterized as an accidental president, proudly out of sympathy with the rest of his party. Henry Harrison is going to die with just a few months of being elected. You remember, if you've read, don't know much about history, it's kind of a comical thing. He doesn't wear a jacket on his inaugural day, and it's a very rainy, cold day, and his aides are telling him, hey, put something on, man, you're going to freeze. Not their exact words, that's my paraphrasing. And he's like, yeah, whatever, I'm a tough guy. He didn't say that either, I'm paraphrasing. So he goes out there, gets cold, gets sick, and he spends the time in the hospital. He eventually dies, and Tyler takes over. Tyler is the accidental president, the first of them, who's proudly out of sympathy with the rest of his party. He is going to take over this prospect of the annexation of Texas, and that's going to be his calling for the American project here. I'm going to pause and come right back to you with more review for Unit 6, Chapters 12 and 13.